What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and I'm finally doing it. This is Madam Web. This is currently available with audio description deluxe, narrated by Laura Post. And click that subscribe button because I'm going to get into Madam Web, finally. I posted a video earlier in the year with a response to, as most people were at the time, Chris Stuckman temporarily broke internet movie criticism, where I posted about, he talks about a lot of things, and what I wanted to talk about was actual criticism, actual, like, being willing to take the swings and to talk about things that don't work and films that don't work. And I think he can still do that, and I think he should still do that. And he was trying to dodge that with Madam Web, but by him saying, I don't review films that I don't like, and this is not a review of Madam Web, is kind of like saying, so you didn't like Madam Web, you just don't want to explain why Madam Web didn't work to your audience. He talked a lot about studio interference. And so I thought about a lot about that stuff while I was actually watching Madam Web for the first time. And the thing about Madam Web is, one of my counter offers initially in this conversation was that I don't think it was the right film to have that conversation with. I think Aquaman and Lost Kingdom was, because that was coming at a time when DC had already kind of decided that they were hitting a reset button on their universe. They're handing the reins to James Gunn. James Gunn is already making sweeping decisions about who he's keeping and who he's getting rid of. And there wasn't as much promotion for Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. And it kind of feels like a film that they kind of gave up on. It doesn't have the same vibe as the first film. So I kind of wish he had made that video about that film, because he could have talked about a lot more. Here, he's just complaining that Sony doesn't know what they're doing with the Spider-Man films, which they haven't. But Sony is not giving up on this Spider-Man universe. They still have other films they want to do. They have other films coming out that they're invested in, like Kraven the Hunter and Venom 3. And they will probably continue to make these films. So they, I think what it ultimately comes down to is the thing he was trying to defend is, it's not the studio's fault. It is actually a writer-director thing here. The script is not good. There's no way Sony could have chopped a good script this much to make it this bad, to make it not work this much. I don't know why anybody would do that. I don't know why you would cut a film this poorly and then send it out into the world. It doesn't make any sense, because it's worse than the other ones. Like, it works less than Venom. It works less than Morbius. But there's more potential here. So this film just misses the mark. Anyway, I'll get into that. And the director doesn't have a voice. The director has nothing to say. The director has done pretty much TV her entire career up until now. So this was her moment to be able to say, well, this is what I would do in film. And they just hired somebody who's so used to jumping into the vibe of other TV shows and directing episodes. She's directed episodes of other TV shows, but it's a lot easier to just jump in and direct a solid episode of a TV show when that is sort of built around you already. It's kind of why you just don't notice. Generally, when you're watching a TV show, you don't notice wild differences in direction, even though directors are constantly changing, because there's sort of like that mechanism that's already built there, like a safety net that keeps the series even no matter what. It doesn't really matter who's behind the chair a lot of actors on TV shows cut their teeth in directing by directing an episode of their own TV show. So I'm not really that impressed by the resume, even though she's got shows like Succession on there. It's like, okay, so she walked into Succession and directed an episode. She did not make Succession great, so I think that show is great because of other reasons, not because of this one person. So yeah, it's I think people just get confused sometimes when they see that and they're like, oh, but they did episodes of these. Did they create any of them? Were they the showrunners? Or did they just come in and do an episode? Because it's not the same thing as film. With film, you have a much greater chance to make your own impact. And here, I think the script is fundamentally flawed, and I think the direction is terrible, and I think the editing is awful. I'm blind. I could hear Tahar Rahim's dubbing. It sounds terrible. He sounds dubbed. He sounds like somebody came back in. It doesn't even sound like Tahar Rahim. I've heard Tahar Rahim speak in other films. I'm not even convinced this is him. I know that there's like a debate online that he just did it in post, that he did, ADR in post, and they just, it is just bad mixing. And he didn't, I guess he wasn't that invested in recording good dialogue, so maybe that's on him. It sounds terrible, man. I don't know what to tell you. It doesn't even sound like his voice. It sounds like somebody else came in, and it sounds like somebody's like doing dubbing work for like, some Jackie Chan movie from like the 90s, like, we must go here now. It's God, his performance is terrible in this. And he's such a talented actor. I mean, he's arguably come close to an Oscar nomination for the Mauritanium. At least I'm sure he got some votes. But yeah, no, this is on him. If that is him, if he did the ADR for this, that's on him. Absolutely trash performance. He plays the villain here. Very underdeveloped. This film just kind of starts, and they're like, wow, we're in Amazon. We're here looking for a spider that could be the cure to all humanity. And then, he's basically like, I'm the bad guy. I have a plot. I grew up poor. I deserve this more than you do. It's like, we're going with really thin character development here. He basically he shoots the scientist who's pregnant, takes the spider for himself, and she ends up, there's this weird tribe that's down there that they don't really explain a whole lot. They just kind of come out, and they have this spider bite this pregnant scientist, and the spider bite ends up giving the baby special powers. That baby ends up becoming Dakota Johnson later on in the film, Cassandra Webb. So yeah, and Cassie decides to, I guess, as an adult, we see that she has references to having been in foster care, which I find incredibly tough, because she would have been a baby, and generally babies are the ones that get adopted. It's generally kids in foster care are usually the older ones that don't get adopted who end up in foster care. I'm surprised that nobody adopted a baby because her mom dies during childbirth. But anyway, she should probably have parents. Just a thought about the script. I had a lot of thoughts while the script was happening. She grew up in foster care, and she ended up a paramedic. And guess who she's a paramedic with? Ben Parker, played by Adam Scott. And I groaned. I did. I was like, oh, of course. I was like, where in the timeline is this at this point? Because we have Ben Parker, And he's talking about how he's just met someone. And I'm like, is this supposed to be Uncle Ben? Like, what are we doing here? Like, you just can't put Ben Parker into a Spider-Man film and it not be the Ben Parker, you know? So he's met someone, we find out, someone named Mary. Uh, I guess that could be May as a nickname. Emma Roberts has almost no character development as Mary, just none, non-existent. Uh, character development. Her character development is being pregnant. I think that the script confuses like being things or like having an object as being character development. Uh, the story revolves around uh, Cassie's need to protect these three girls randomly, who seem to be a part of her life for no discernible reason. She's just kind of run into them before. Sydney Sweeney, Celeste O'Connor, and I don't know, there's another girl. Um, it doesn't really matter. They have three names, but they're so interchangeable that I couldn't even tell you who was who because they have no personalities. It doesn't even matter what their names are. It could be like Snap, Crackle, and Pop. And just, you know, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. It really doesn't matter. Um, they have no discernible personality. You couldn't tell who between the three of them. I think one of them, their personality is the fact that they own a skateboard. I think that was literally the screenwriter sat down and was like, that's what makes her different. She owns a skateboard. Okay. You suck at this job. Please stop writing scripts. Thank you. Bye. Yeah, there's no development here. There's one girl who like her dad is like missing. Another girl owns a skateboard. I don't even know what the other girl's problem was. They have like a problem that defines them. Their whole character. They have no range or personality. Cassie doesn't really have a range of personality either, but at least we know more about her. She tells us more about her life and her backstory, and we know about her mom and how she got here, and she has these visions. And this benefit of being a star of the film is that inevitably you throw enough at the audience and you get some semblance of character development. But for the most part, there is no character development here. They're just people walking around, which makes it really hard to care about any of them. Although, I'm being told these are good, this is bad. So yeah, of course, I want the three girls to live because Tahar Rahim is over here running around as, I don't know, some spider. He's in a suit. By the way, when I keep hearing in a suit, I think the dude is actually in a suit. I know we're trying to avoid using like in a Spider-Man suit, in a superhero suit because he's not a superhero. Um, I can kind of guess that he's in some sort of a villain costume. I'd maybe go with costume instead of suit. Because I just kept picturing this dude in like a business suit crawling on walls and stuff. And I don't think that that's what they mean. I really just don't think that's what they meant by this description. So Cassie and the girls just keep traveling and running away from this guy. And there's some ridiculous scenes in this. There's a scene where they're Ben and Mary are driving. I think the girls are in the car with them, and Tahar Rahim has almost got them, and he's like on the hood of the car or something, and then like out of nowhere, Dakota Johnson flies an ambulance through a billboard and perfectly somehow knocks Tahar Rahim off of the car. And I'm like, that's an ambulance flying through the air. Like, it's one of those scenes where it was described to me and I was like, fuck, I'm blind. I wish I could see this scene because it sounds so stupid. I'm like, what? I'm like, what? She just, it sounds like she just flew an ambulance through a billboard and like somehow perfectly clips Tahar Rahim off of the other car and then like lands. And then the ambulance is drivable. I'm like, I don't understand how this scene just happened. It sounds inane, but um sounds like some Michael Bay shit. So yeah. Anyway, this movie is fun though. In it has almost some of those bad movie vibes that make things fun. It's not the worst experience I've had this year. I've definitely seen some movies I never want to see again. For other reasons, like the whole experience wasn't fun. This was fun and entertaining in some bad. It had a little bit of a bad movie vibe, um, that actually made it entertaining for the wrong reasons, for the reasons that the people making this film didn't want it to be. That kind of rebounds it a little bit and will affect actually my grading of it, because I my level of enjoyment does go in there with the grading. Um, but it's not a good film. I also don't blame Dakota Johnson. She's gotten a lot of shit for this. And I was watching this film and I was like, this is Dakota Johnson. She's reading the lines as Dakota Johnson. She's giving a Dakota Johnson performance. I didn't pick anything up from her performance that said, even if she has resting bitch face the whole film, that's Dakota Johnson. I haven't always been blind. I have been able to see her performances. Even in some of her like rangiest stuff, maybe like Black Mass with Johnny Depp, she doesn't really have a ton of range. She kind of keeps her performances are very sort of chill, kind of low key. I'm not saying she's a bad actress. I'm just saying there's a certain vibe Dakota Johnson has. And this is her vibe. If you don't like this, then somebody else should have been cast, but I don't think she intentionally gave a bad performance. I also don't think Adam Scott gave a bad performance. I think Adam Scott was really good in this. I think he's one of the bright spots in this because Adam Scott gives an Adam Scott performance. He comes in and does exactly what he's supposed to do. And he's sort of jokey and he handles all of the stuff that he's being given rather well. I didn't really have a problem with any of the girls as actresses. I just think that they're incredibly underdeveloped. But the three girls, I thought they all did fine. I can't think of the third one's name, but um, yeah, I they I did not have a problem with them. So there are some things here that lead me to believe this film could have worked. The explanation of her powers and the fact that she can see slightly into the future and she's new at this and she can't quite control her powers. We've seen that before in other superhero films. They don't know quite how to work their powers and they're trying to learn how to do it. She's learning how to become a hero. She doesn't quite know how to do it. I think there's a setup here that works. There's a structure to this film that could have worked with a better writer. Um, but unfortunately, this writer does not know what character development is. The director didn't care what character development was. And by the time it got down to post-production, I guess everybody just looked at the film and was like, well, whatever. Let's just get Tahar Rahim's voice back on there. I don't know how bad was his original recording, because I can't imagine that this was the better of the two options. You know, I know he has a little bit of an accent. If he was doing was he annoyed that they made him? Did he do his original, like his normal accent, and then they came back through and they were like, no, we need it to be American. Can you do an American accent for us? And he was like, fuck you. So he intentionally like tanked his ADR. I don't know, because he's fine. I've never had a problem understanding Tahar Rahim before. He speaks perfect English. He's not stumbling through his dialogue. I don't understand what happened here. Is there a video of Tahar Rahim speaking on his performance as to like what happened? Has he explained the shit that he has pulled here? Because the words are if they're his words, if he did his own voice. Now, if he's gonna say, "Listen, I didn't do it. That's someone else. That's not my voice." Uh, we need to have a completely different conversation. But um, it sounds terrible. I've heard, obviously, of course, I've heard that the mixing doesn't line up, but I'm telling you, I can hear he sounds dubbed. He sounds like a dubbed voice in this film. It's very obvious. There's a certain thing like when it kind of clicks in and clicks out type of thing that you can actually kind of hear. It's not done well. It really was edited poorly. So yeah, this is not a great film. And at the end of the day, I have seen films this year that I didn't like more than I don't like this film. That is true. Like I said, there is some enjoyment here, and I do think some of the performances worked. I think it, like, conceptually, the character of Madame Web could have worked. But as far as the stuff that Sony has produced thus far, this is probably the worst of the of this like offshoot stuff that they've been doing. I actually liked Venom Let There Be Carnage. Venom is okay. It has a crap villain in it, but as a film, it was okay. With that pause, by the way. Morbius was not great, but this is actually, yeah, this is bad filmmaking. I don't think she's ever going to direct again. She's probably going to go back to TV. This will be the only feature film she ever directs. So I can't imagine anybody's going to go from the director of Madame Web. Unless she starts directing like sequels to Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. I just really don't know what else. There's nothing else in her dead career. She can go be a barista at Starbucks. I don't know, something, but it's back to TV because you were given a feature-length film and it really did not work out. Do I think it's all Sony? No, I don't. I don't think it's all Sony. They have no reason to purposefully cut this film to death. They have no reason to make 10,000 paper cuts here. Death by 10,000 cuts or whatever. Yeah, no reason. It's a franchise that's still happening. However, with Aquaman, yeah, they could have easily cut the budget and been like, wrap it up, finish it up, get it out, shoot it. We don't have time for post. Put that shit out, you know? Madame Web, they had every reason to want this to succeed. So I think they released this thinking that it was going to succeed. There was a pretty solid promotional campaign for this film, and this was what the film was. So I think Sony didn't know it was bad. I really think they thought they had a good film here. Which really concerns me. Some people should be fired. Who didn't push this back 6 months and give it a re-edit. Anyway, Madame Web. I'm going to give Madame Web a D+. So, yeah, sometimes you do have to review the bad films and you do have to talk about why they don't work and stuff like that. Audio description-wise, I just wanted to totally separate the film from the grade because this is deluxe and Laura Post. So, of course, the audio description is fantastic. But I needed to be able to, so I realize I'm doing this totally after the film grade. Usually I try to mix it in a little bit more. I didn't even want the two. It feels like a wildly different conversation. I think the description here is terrific because one of the things that the film does really well is Cassie has all of these visions, and it like pulls her in and out of reality, and I thought that was done really well, well as it possibly could have been described. I thought a lot of character descriptions, were done really well. One of the girls with the bantam knots, I guess is what they're called in her hair. The hairstyle description, got some interesting hairstyle description there that I thought was really good. Yeah, I think the audio description team here came in clutch for a film that really doesn't deserve to have this level of audio description. We deserve to have this level of audio description. And part of the reason I'm able to critique this film at this level of is because the level of audio description was so high. I just kind of feel bad. I feel bad for people who work on films like this, and it's like, well, I did the audio description for Madam Web, and you're like, ooh, I'm so sorry. I feel bad. I feel bad. First of all, I have to, generally the writers end up watching these films like 5 times at least to write the script to make sure it's solid. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, man, somebody had to watch this film 5 times to get this audio description track. Whew. Yeah. So thank you so much to Deluxe and Laura Post. You guys are the real heroes for producing exceptional audio description on this film. But because it's so wildly different, like I would give you guys an A, but the film is like, the film is hot garbage. So, thank you for your excellent audio description on a truly terrible film. But anyway, that's it. That's my wrap up. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I know this is a long video, but I did make a video earlier this year that trended and talked about Madam Web. So I figured this should at least be at length of some kind. So I'll see you guys on the other side.